Live, I'm Michael Ayala. We are switching gears now to go to New Jersey for the Treadmill abuse murder trial. Defendant Christopher Gregor is accused of forcing his 6-year-old son Corey to run on a treadmill at really impossibly high speeds for a kid that young because he believed the boy was too fat. Now, Gregor is charged with endangering the welfare of a child and first-degree murder in the death of Corey. The state presented video evidence of Gregor forcing Corey on a treadmill in his apartment gym, showing Corey repeatedly falling down as he tried to stand. It was really tough to watch. Now, the pediatrician who examined Corey the day before he died took the stand today, so we're going to get you inside the courtroom for that testimony.
Where did you see him?
That's where I saw him, in the exam room.
Did you stay in the room for the duration of Corey's exam?
I did.
And was Corey's mom in the room for the duration of the exam as well?
Yes.
When it came time for you to perform your portion of the exam, other than the weighing and measuring, was anybody else in the room other than the people you described?
No.
And could you tell me what, if any, initial observations of Corey did you make?
So, when I entered the room, Corey was sitting on the exam table. That's where he had been brought to get his blood pressure taken and his pulse and his breathing and his pulse ox. He was sitting there, and the nurse had asked him to take his shirt off. So he had his pants on and shirt off, and he was sitting quietly on the exam table. And his mother was seated in the exam room next to the exam table.
And did you make any initial observations when you walked in of how Corey looked?
Yeah, so as a pediatrician, we rely not just on what patients say, but how they're acting, because they don't, kids don't just tell you something hurts. A lot of times they don't, or they don't. So you're always looking from the very start. How are they sitting? How are they looking? Do they look alert? Are they looking bright? Before we set an eye, before we touch a patient, we're looking for all the evidence, everything we can get. And he was sitting quietly. He was breathing easily. He didn't look in any distress. And he just looked very serious, and I'd say, kind of contained, like stoic, kind of, just very sitting.
Did you observe Corey's mom?
And so she was sitting, and she looked just very worried and concerned.
Did you observe any interaction between Corey and his mom?
Well, he would look at her, and they would just look at each other as I was asking first the mother. Now I'm going to find out from them what is the history, like what's happened, or what are you worried about? So what we call, and she was listed as the independent historian. She was the one to give the history, as parents do, first.
Did you tell Corey anything about his visit with you that day, or the purpose of his visit?
So based on, I do give children a chance to say what hurts or what's the problem, or what happened, if it's an injury, how did you get hurt? So I did that, and he at first didn't want to say anything. Shook his head. I don't know. And so I explained to him that in order to help him, I had to know how he got hurt and what happened. And still he hesitated, so I said, Corey, we can't help you if we don't know what happened, and please, and don't worry, because you know, I need to know so I can help you be safe.
And did Corey give you any response?
And so he looked at his mom, and she said,
You can't tell me what anybody else
okay.
said. But did Corey give you a response?
He did. He said that he got the chest and arm and hip bruises and the forehead scrape when he was playing football outside on the turf. And he said that his dad was teaching him how to catch a football. And when I pressed him further, you know, that's a lot from playing football. He said he got more bruises when he fell from a treadmill.
And what was his demeanor while you were speaking with him and he was speaking with you?
Well, as he was explaining this, his mother teared up and started to cry, and then he got tearful as well.
Did you end up conducting an examination of Corey?
I did.
And could you tell me what that examination at first consisted of?
So I reviewed his what the nurses had found out, and he had a normal blood pressure. He had what we call a pulse ox test that tests on the finger this oxygen level. It was 98%. His pulse rate was 90, and his respiratory rate was 24. His temperature was 98.6, so it was normal, no fever. And I considered those vital signs normal for his age.
Did you go on to conduct an examination, like a general one, or ear, nose, and throat, or anything like that?
Yes, and I'm noticing here when I said my first thing is generally just look at them, and he had normal activity and normal interaction. I forgot to, he said, tell me that, I don't know, I have something in my notes that you might have missed.
Why don't you show it without speaking, so you show it to Ms. Strong, and I'll have counsel decide for it.
All right, so that little issue leads to a sidebar about exactly what she could tell this jury about what Corey told her about what his dad told him, which of course creates a situation of double hearsay. So that created a problem. We'll take a break right now. When we come back, we'll have more testimony from Dr. Nancy Deacon. But first, we do have this quick programming note. The defendant in the Idaho student murders case, Brian Kohlberger, will be back in court for a big hearing. The judge will hear arguments over the state's motion to close an upcoming hearing on a defense motion to compel. Now, it's related to certain evidence that the defense wants prosecutors to turn over. Now, that hearing at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. You can see it right here on Court TV Live. We'll be right back.
One of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime obsession, 48 Hours on Court TV. Coming up next on Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, Karen Reed continues her fight to remain a free woman. Join us as we go in depth into the killer or cover-up murder trial.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan tonight at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
All right, folks, before we head back to court, let's bring back in President of the West Coast Trial Lawyers, Nima Rahmani. Nima, I've been dying to get your impression of this case. This jury has already seen a it's just an awful video of how this defendant treated his son. But there are some issues, I think, here with causation as to whether, that abuse and the abuse that we're learning about can be attributed to the actual cause of death. But I want to get your thoughts on this one.
It's a really tough case to defend, Michael. I understand they're going to argue that, obviously Corey didn't die immediately. You had some intervening seizures and some neurological issues and so forth. But the video is so bad, and I mean, just watching it right now and him trying to bite his son, I mean, it's so bad. I don't think the defense is going to be able to do anything with this. And to argue that something else caused poor Corey's death, it's really an uphill battle. I'm surprised that this defendant didn't take the 30-year offer. I wouldn't be surprised that when he's convicted, he gets sentenced to life, because someone treating their own child like this, it's really beyond the pale. So very tough case to defend. Maybe they're going to try to get a lesser included, like manslaughter. But when you have a special duty like this to your child, it's very hard to win a case like this.
Yeah, I agree. And what Nima's talking about is the state offered a deal to this defendant. They said if he pled guilty, he would just get 30 years and he wouldn't be eligible for parole for those 30 years. But he chose not to. He wanted to take this to trial. And again, with this type of evidence, I don't know. I agree with you, Nima. The other thing is, because of this video, it really lets the jury and our viewers who are watching believe that this guy's really capable of anything. So when you hear this little boy tell this doctor that he had all these bruises which seem to match up with where some of these injuries were, a bruise on his side, he had a lacerated liver, he's playing football, there was a bruise or some kind of area, discoloration in his chest, he had a lacerated heart. I could just envision how this guy would have wanted to teach his son how to play football on turf and causing all those bruises. It is a very, very short leap to think of the type of things that he was doing to that poor little boy under the guise of trying to teach him how to play football that resulted in these deadly injuries.
Oh, I agree, Michael. I mean, poor Corey suffered from so many injuries, and the defense is really not going to have any other plausible or reasonable explanation, especially when this video is so graphic, it's so violent. You're talking about a young boy, 6 years old, and the way he was treated. And frankly, I mean, I don't think anyone's going to understand why anyone would think that this child is overweight and needs to run on a treadmill. It just doesn't make any sense. This is a sick and twisted father, and I think we're going to get a pretty quick conviction here, Michael.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think what he was functioning from was a place of anger, and I think he was taking out whatever anger he had at the world, at the mom, at whoever else was involved. He was taking it out on this poor little 6-year-old boy. It's just a real crying shame. All right, Nima, stand by. We're going to get back to court now, where the judge and the attorneys are actually discussing an issue outside the presence of the jury. And this involves, again, as I mentioned earlier, double hearsay. Words that were said to Corey by his father that he tells the doctor. Can she tell the jury those things? Let's get back into court.
Judge, with regard to the exception to the hearsay rule with regard to Corey's then existing state of mind under 803C3.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Lucci or Mr. Randall?
Your Honor, I don't know what that actually says about his state of mind. I don't know what that statement means. There's no clarity, and as a result, I think it's irrelevant for the purposes of medical treatment, but also it's a state of mind. It doesn't add anything, and it calls the jury and whoever hears it to speculate as to what that might mean. For those reasons, it should not come in. And I would also ask to strike the portion of the doctor's testimony during her direct examination that did not come out during the prior 104 hearing, where she made reference to consistent prodding of Corey to get additional information out of him. That was not made clear or did not come out during the 104 hearing, because we could have addressed it then, and as a result, I think it should be stricken.
Thank you. All right, so first let me deal with the new statement that I'll ask the state about the additional request. Evidence Rule 803C3 provides that following type of statement could be admissible. A statement made in good faith of the declarant's then existing state of mind, emotion, sensation, or physical conditions, such as intent, plan, motive, design, mental feeling, pain, or bodily health. So this typically means that someone who is presently saying, I'm in pain, my leg hurts, my arm hurts, whether made to a physician or someone else, those statements are generally considered inherently reliable. People don't typically complain about something like that at a particular moment. And every exception to the hearsay rule is based upon an indicia of reliability. So here, I previously found that child's statements about the cause, as well as what parts of his body may have been in pain, were appropriate. This is more of a question or request made by the child to the physician. Promise not to tell anyone what I said. That's not a statement about his emotion, sensation, or physical condition. In terms of his state of mind, arguably, I guess it relates to his state of mind, but it's really more of a concern about sharing with someone. I don't know how it's particularly probative. The child was injured in football. Perhaps he thought, I won't be able to play football anymore. I know the state wants to be that I don't want my father to know I told him I fell on the treadmill, but it's ambiguous. It's certainly beyond the scope of seeking medical treatment, beyond the scope of an existing complaint or statement of current pain. So I find that this additional statement, promise not to tell anyone what he said, should not be admitted to the jury. Again, I'm constrained by the evidence rules. Ms. Ferranti then brought up the second issue about the doctor's testimony at the earlier 104 hearing was somewhat more basic, that she saw bruises and that Corey said they were caused by football injuries, and then further he said they were caused by falling on a treadmill. Contrary, or at least inconsistent with that, before the jury, she indicated Corey initially refused to explain what happened, that she was prodding him, that she said to him that, she explained that she had to know what happened in order to be able to help him so he could be safe. Corey then said that the bruises which the doctor saw on chest, arms, head were from football. The doctor expressed here that she had some disbelief. I'm a little unsure if she said to Corey she disbelieved him or if she's just telling us she disbelieved him. And then when pressed further, he said he fell on a treadmill. So I just wonder, like, why didn't she tell us that at the 104 hearing? It's the whole purpose of doing that. So now I'm concerned that it was a result of prodding. It was a result of saying, we need you to be safe, which suggests he's in danger.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll have more of the judge's ruling when we come back. Thanks to Nima Rahmani for joining us this evening. Please don't go away. Coming up next, we're going to continue our special coverage of the Treadmill abuse murder trial in New Jersey. So keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
And when I pressed him further, that's a lot from playing football. He said he got more bruises when he fell from a treadmill.
What was his demeanor while you were speaking with him and he was speaking with you?
Well, as he was explaining this, his mother teared up and started to cry, and then he got tearful as well.
Welcome back to our special coverage of the Treadmill abuse murder trial in New Jersey. I'm Michael Ayala. Defendant Christopher Gregor is accused of first-degree murder in the death of his 6-year-old son, Corey Micciolo. Now, yesterday, the jury saw multiple videos of the defendant and his son in the building's gym. 6-year-old Corey is on the treadmill, and Gregor can be seen increasing the speed on the treadmill, really until the child repeatedly falls while running and trying to get back on the machine while it's running. Though prosecutors aren't saying the treadmill actually caused Corey's death, they do say the child was the victim of chronic abuse. Today, one of Corey's teachers testified that she saw several bruises on him. Attorneys on both sides have been discussing an issue with the judge, and this involves the doctor who looked at him and examined him right before he was sent to the hospital. And the problem is she said something to the effect that I had to press him or prod him for information. The defense is arguing that that's prejudicial. They want a corrective instruction. Against the state is obviously arguing against that. So let's get back into court as the judge continues to discuss the issues with the attorneys.
Her testimony changed or became more detailed in just a matter of minutes. So now what do I do about that? Do I just tell the jury to disregard the whole thing? Or is there some other remedy? Or do I allow Mr. Gallucci to then cross-examine her about, isn't it true you just testified at a hearing outside the presence of the jury and you didn't say that? Because if we did this last week, for instance, he would have ordered a transcript from that and we would have dealt with that. And the real question was, why? Why did she do that? Why did she not volunteer that to us in the first place?
Judge, I cannot answer why she didn't do it in the first place. I don't know if it's how my questions came across to her. I don't know if it's in the context of asking about demeanor.
I honestly thought that your questions were longer than necessary at the 104 hearing, that you did more. That's not a criticism, but I meant you could have just gone to, doctor, we'll get to your qualifications later. Did you see Corey on April 1st and what did it say? But instead, you developed a record.
And
that's why I'm somewhat troubled that her answers were different before the jury than they were outside the presence of the jury.
I was trying to, so that way anything that needed to be on the record could be on the record.
And that's
as far as
commendable, let me say I appreciate you for that. My comments are not critical of the prosecution at this point.
As far as what she said to Corey, I was trying to bring that out in a chronological way, and what she said to Corey wouldn't, be part of the 104 hearing about his statements. And I think when she told me things, it was a little jumbled, and I don't know if she appreciated the significance of that, possibly, instead of it occurring at separate portions like I was trying to do at the 104 hearing. And I also asked about his demeanor. I think I followed up with that question, which may have caused her to say it the way she did. I can't speak for her, but that is why I did try to conduct the 104 hearing the way that I did, so all of it could be fleshed out.
I don't think your questions were remarkably different between the 104 hearing and her testimony before the jury. I don't think anything you did as a prosecutor was trying to limit or avoid something coming out of the 104 hearing. I think her testimony was different and that was her own doing. So what's the defense suggest I do?
Judge, I believe in order to be fair, if the court is willing to strike that portion of the testimony, or as the alternative that the court suggested, allowing us to cross-examine the differences in the 104 hearing. And just to clarify, if the court would strike all of the testimony from this doctor or allow us to impeach her through the 104 hearing testimony, if we can make reference to it, I think either of those would be acceptable.
All right, so anyone add, Mr. Gucci?
I personally would rather strike it than allow me to cross-examine her on it. That would be my first preference.
All right, so evidentiary rulings are designed for the trial judge to exercise discretion based upon the particular facts and circumstances of the case. So as a general proposition, I find that what the doctor described is virtually common knowledge. You come to a doctor, the doctor elicits a history from you, or an assistant does. For a child, it's very common that a history is elicited from a parent. It's common that physicians ask patients complaints of pain, and that they also elicit the cause or origin of that pain. So all those things are appropriate. I also think that it's common knowledge that children are sometimes reluctant to say things. In the interest of this trial, I think the jury is smart enough to be able to make its own credibility determinations. The jury's seen the Treadmill video. It's very, very likely the child has some bruise or abrasion from it. So that's not particularly shocking to the jury that the doctor observed these things. So I find it will be inappropriate for me to strike the doctor's testimony. And I declined to do so. In terms of whether or not Mr. Gallucci then cross-examines the witness on the fact that her testimony was different at the 104 hearing than it was in front of the jury, that's somewhat problematic. There's no transcript from it because it just occurred. You could perhaps try to handle it, but what I was thinking was similar to the limiting instruction on statements of defendant, I would give a limiting instruction to the jury at the conclusion of this doctor's testimony that there is, for their consideration in this case, oral statements allegedly made by Corey to the physician. Normally, hearsay statements are not permitted into evidence. However, statements made in good faith, and I try to track the evidence rule, statements made in good faith of a person's then existing sensation or physical condition, including complaints of pain, as well as statements made in good faith for the purposes of medical diagnosis, describing medical history, past, present symptoms or sensation, their general inception, or their inception or general cause are admissible, and then to give that same instruction. In considering whether or not Corey actually made these oral statements, you should consider and weigh this evidence with caution. You should take into consideration all the facts and circumstances, including whether the doctor prodded him to make any statements. If after consideration you determine these statements were not actually made or they're not credible, then you must disregard them. If you find the statement was made and all or portion of it is credible, you give what weight you think to that portion of the statement you find to be truthful and credible.
In addition to me being able to cross-examine her.
Yeah, I think I need to give that limiting instruction, period.
Yes.
The question about the cross-examination, though, is what are you going to do when she says, no, I said that I was the same both times. Are you going to ask for a readback, or I don't know how we're going to handle that? All right, well, we should give the court reporter some time to look that up rather than just...
I understand that.
Madam Reporter, is that something you could do?
Sure, I can do, you just have to, when we go off the record, you can guide me a little bit.
All right, so that's the end of the arguments there. Obviously, that was taking place outside the presence of the jury. They'll be bringing the jury back in so the doctor can continue her testimony. The judge really had three choices here. The doctor testified on a proffer of evidence. This was outside the presence of the jury. She didn't mention that she had to pick and prod to get that information out. So the defense said, look, we want to strike all of her testimony at this point. The judge said, no, I'm not going to go that far. He could allow them to cross her on it. Her previous testimony that was outside the presence of the jury that differed. But, he decided, you know what, I'm going to give a curative instruction. He's going to tell them when they look at this testimony, they have to take different things into account. So that was the choice he made. He also did say, though, if she denies that she didn't make that statement previously, then they will be allowed to cross-examine her. And although they don't have any kind of affidavit on it or any kind of record of it, they will go back and they will have the court reporter go back and read back what she testified to. So judge came up with a nice compromise there. All right, looks like they're set to go. Jury back in. Let's go back in for more of the doctor's testimony.
Left off, I was asking you about the examination of Corey that you conducted. Could you please describe the examination that you performed on Corey?
Yes, so as I say, he had normal activity and alertness, was sitting up without favoring anything. His eyes, when I say eyes, were clear. I looked at the external, everything looked normal. The whites of his eyes looked normal. I looked inside his eyes with a ophthalmoscope and then into the back of his eyes, that was normal. I examined his ears, canal, and his tympanic membranes. The canals were clear, his throat was clear, he didn't have any redness of his throat. He had no signs of any viral, when I say viral stigmata, I mean he had no runny nose, no mucus. His neck, he could move it all directions. It was supple, he wasn't favoring it. And he had no what we call cervical adenopathy, meaning he had no enlarged lymph nodes anywhere on his neck. And the other thing that I look for when there's infection is if there's tenderness over the cheekbones, to look at the sinuses, and I checked them and they were not tender, and the other sinuses I palpated, and there was no tenderness. I listened to his heart, and it was a regular rate and rhythm. He didn't have any murmurs. He had normal heart sounds. And his breathing, I had already observed that he wasn't breathing fast or heavy. He wasn't sucking his, what we call labored, sucking his ribs in, making any effort. He was just breathing normally, quietly. And when I listened to him with a stethoscope, his lungs were clear. And he had what we call good air movement, meaning he had a full breath in and out. And I was particularly interested because some of I was interested in any rib injuries. In fact, I palpated all his, I had him lay down, I checked his abdomen, it wasn't distended. When I say HSMM, he had no enlargement that I could feel of his liver, his spleen, or any masses that I could feel. He didn't guard, because sometimes children don't tell you that things hurt. So I push hard, and there was no tightening of his muscles. There was nothing, and I listened to his bowel sounds, and meaning I listened with the stethoscope, and they were normal. So everything was good with his bowels. As far as neurologic, he was alert. When I say oriented ×3, he knew where he was, he knew who he was and who he's with. Checked pupils, their reactivity, and his eye movements, all his cranial nerves. There was no drooping. Everything, when he moved his mouth, there wasn't any drooping. And then I went on to look at his muscular skeletal system. I also I noted all of the findings on his skin. I can talk about them now, or I can complete the rest of the exam and then talk about that.
Could you tell me about the rest of the exam first?
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure he didn't have any injuries to his muscles or bones. So I had him raise his arms up over his head, and he could do that. He could move them every way I wanted. He could, I had him get off the table and walk for me and jump up and down without any difficulty, without favoring anything. He had a normal gait. And I checked all his muscles, which for me is he has to hold him out. I got to push him down. He's got to push me away, laying down.
All right. So then at about 5:18 in the afternoon on April 1st, Corey, the 6-year-old boy, the victim in this case, presented relatively normal, other than a few bruises. Less than 24 hours later, he would be dead, and that's the issue in this case. All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we'll continue with more of the doctor's testimony. Keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, we are live from Dedham, Massachusetts, where Karen Reed continues her fight to remain a free woman. We'll take you back to the scene where John O'Keefe was killed and dive deeper into each side's theory of what happened that snowy night. And the Doomsday Prophet murder trial continues. We'll bring you the biggest moments from today's testimony as this death penalty case moves forward.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back, folks. We're going to get you back inside the courtroom in just a moment. But first, I do want to bring in my guest for this hour. Joining me, Deputy Public Defender for L.A. County, Philip Dubé. Philip, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us on the program tonight here in our special hour here on Court TV Live. Let me ask you this. First, I want to get your thoughts on this case, but really what I want to ask you is, this doctor's testimony, do you think it presents any problem for the prosecution? And here's why I say that. Because she's talking about a kid who's presenting very, very normal. We'll find out later that there were some very serious injuries found that the defense's claim was caused other ways after his appearance in front of this doctor. Do you think it presents any problems that he's not showing any pain, he presents relatively normal, other than some bruises?
Absolutely. You know, usually most child abusers, especially ones who receive kids later on in their care, as opposed to right from birth, would show symptoms of abuse pretty early on. This kid is presenting rather healthy. It goes to show that there seems to be a healthy relationship in the home. What it really sounds like, and if I've read New Jersey law correctly, is they have to show that he allowed an injury to occur that raised a substantial risk of death that was not an accident. So because the kid presented so healthy to the pediatrician, it suggests that what happened to this kid really was the result of an accident. I mean, Michael, you know, kids do more these days than just, you know, play on monkey bars and, you know, dog paddle and play hopscotch. You know, they play much more robust games. So I don't think that this is hardly unusual, frankly.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Philip, stand by. I want to get folks back into court now for more testimony from Dr. Nancy Deacon. Again, she saw him on April 1st, and the appointment was at 5:18 a.m. It was an emergency appointment by the mom because she was afraid of some of the bruises she was seeing on him. Let's get back into the courtroom.
Good resistance of all his muscles, and so absolutely nothing that I was worried about with his muscles or his bones. He had no swelling. I had him stand on each foot, and he could bear weight because sometimes you even, you know. So I made sure he had no problems with that. He had no swelling or warmth, anything that would suggest an infection of his skin, or any no swelling. And when I say no pain, with palpation of his chest, I push on all the ribs and all the bones to make sure that there wasn't any sign of rib or bone tenderness anywhere.
And doctor, were you making a pushing motion with your hands when you did that?
Yeah, so I'm making.
Is that in your rib area that you're doing
all the
that?
ribs. I push every bone I can.
And up until that point, what you've testified to so far, did you make any findings or discover any problems?
No, and then I did check his genitalia, and there was nothing, no problems or masses or abnormalities there as well. The abnormalities that I saw were on his skin.
Okay. And did you document that anywhere?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Where did you document?
I have a body, I used a body chart because to be able to show and be able to remember where I saw any lesions on his skin.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
Sir.
Dr. Deacon, I'm showing you what's been marked as S43 for identification. Could you take a look at it for me, please?
Yes,
Okay. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
And this is my my body chart that showed that, and I have written down the lesions that I noticed on his body. It says it was done. I labeled it as 4/1/21 Corey Micciolo.
And when you say his, you mean Corey's body?
Corey's body, yes.
Okay. And does S43 accurately depict the observations that you made of Corey's body when he was at the visit at your office on April 1st, 2021?
It does.
Okay. Could you take me through the observations that were on Corey's body that you documented, please?
Okay, so I'm going to start the head and work my way down front side of his body first. Present on his left forehead was what I described as pink granulation tissue with a tiny scab. What that means is that there was dry pink tissue with a little scab.
Doctor, could you
I'm
just tell me when
pointing
you
to-
point to a body part where you're pointing on
Yeah,
your
so I'm
body?
pointing to my left forehead. There was a blue-gray bruise over his left cheek, and I'm pointing to the bone right here on his left side of his face. Number 3 was a large yellow-green bruise, and that was located overlying his shoulder, his trapezius, and I'm pointing to my left shoulder right here. Four was another large yellow-green bruise, and when we have the standing pose, the arms are like this, so it was on the left inner arm.
When you say standing like this, are you
Standing with
your
my
arms
palms facing forward.
Okay.
The fifth thing that I noticed, or that I wrote down, was a blue bruise present over the elbow, and I'm pointing to the inner aspect of the elbow overlying the bone. On 6 was on the right side of his chest, and it was 2 areas of what I called hyperpigmented skin, which was the skin was white compared to the skin around him. So for me, that means that was a healing area of healing skin where it's healed, but the pigment hasn't come back yet. 7 was my impression. The 7th was a linear scar. When I say linear, I mean like a line, and it was present on the right lower abdomen. Pink, and I called it a scar, pink scar. 8. These were superficial fresh scratches. They were located below the belly button, above the pubic bone in the center of his body. By superficial, I mean they looked, I called them fresh because you could see that they hadn't formed a scab. There was like a little bit of moistness to them that looked like a scratch that just happened or could have happened. 9 were blue bruises, and I made 3 circles, and they were located on the left lower leg, the front part of it overlying the shin. So the area where the bone, you can feel the bone on the lower leg. And then 11 and 10 and 11 were what I described as tiny scratches on the lower front of his ankles, between the foot and the lower part of his leg.
All right, he's an active 6-year-old boy. There can be some bruises. That's a lot of bruises for one boy. And if he got a lot of them playing football with his dad, something's wrong there. You shouldn't have to have those kind of bruises teaching your son how to play football. Anyway, more testimony on the other side from this doctor. Keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to our special coverage of the Treadmill abuse murder trial going on in New Jersey. I'm Michael Ayala, the pediatrician who examined the victim. 6-year-old Corey Micciolo is on the stand. Now, she examined him before he died. She's testifying now to some of the bruises that she noticed on him. This was one day before he died. She's visiting him. She says, hey, take him to the hospital after what she sees. But again, he does present relatively normal. Let's go back into court.
Now, located on the back, his back of his body, so he'd be facing this way with the palms. 12 was a large yellow-green bruise, and that was located on the back of his left upper arm, overlying this kind of fatty muscle tissue. And 14 was another large yellow-green bruise, and it was located at the waist. Now I'm talking about this left side, right here, kind of over this upper part of the glute muscle. It's over the soft tissue.
Doctor, are you turning around when you show us
I'm turning
that?
around and I'm showing you my back left side.
Is that everything that you have on your chart, doctor?
That's everything.
Okay. And were those 14
That
areas
was
of the body
14.
that you described?
Yeah, that last one was 14. Oh, and 13, did I describe 13? Was another bruise located on the elbow, on the back side of the, over that bony process of that arm.
Was that everything you did that was part of your examination then?
Yeah, just double check. That was all that was the extent of my exam.
Did you make a plan for Corey before he left your office?
I did. So, assessment is what we do after the physical exam. What is my assessment of Corey? And my assessment was normal bruises, numerous bruises with different stages of healing and healed abrasions with a history of falling on a treadmill and getting hit with a football. Mostly over bony prominences, but some were over soft tissue areas.
What was the plan that you made for Corey?
So for me, there were bruises that you could explain, by the ones over bony processes with falling, with the play that children do. There's common areas where we have bruises, and then there's areas over soft tissue that it takes more of a blow, more usually, to have that size of a bruise and that kind of injury. That's why I was trying so hard to make sure there wasn't any underlying bone or because they were so big. And so through my mind is, well, when you have those kinds of bruises, it takes either a bigger, harder force, or he might have a reason why he bruises easily. So I had said I want to rule out any bleeding or clotting abnormality because those children can have extensive bruising as well.
Did you make recommendations for Corey before he left your office?
Yeah, so I told Mom that we needed to bring him right. He needed to go right to the hospital. That we had to be sure that he wasn't at risk for even worse bleeding, and with blood work. And honestly, from what I learned and what he said and my whole impression of this visit, that he needed further, even if the DCP&P hadn't been involved, I would have called them. But I thought I'll send him to the hospital for a further evaluation because he needed more careful evaluation and expert interviewing, more that's not my role as a general pediatrician. He needed more care before I would consider him safe to go home.
When you finished with your examination of Corey and making recommendations, did you contact anybody about Corey and your recommendations?
I did. So I called, this is now 5:45, 6 o'clock, it's getting late. And so I call when I have a concern, I have a careful record, but I wanted to also let them know what I was worried about. And so I called the emergency department physician. I had wanted him to go to Jersey Shore, but with time constraints from the mother, she did agree to take him right across the street from my office, not 5 minutes away, with community hospital. So I sent him there. I called the doctor that it was going to see him there. And I called Mark, the caseworker from DCP&P, who had asked to be called after my visit to discuss my findings and concerns.
And was that your last personal involvement with Corey Micciolo?
Yes.
I have no additional questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Gooch.
All right, so there you heard the doctor say there was enough there for her that if the Child Protective Services had not already been involved, she would have called them. The mother had already gotten them involved, and she wanted the mom to take him to the hospital for further checking up. All right, cross-examination is next. Keep it right here. We'll have much more on the other side. Keep it here on Court TV.
Tonight, on Closing Arguments, we are live from Dedham, Massachusetts, where Karen Reed continues her fight to remain a free woman. We'll take you back to the scene where John O'Keefe was killed and dive deeper into each side's theory of what happened that snowy night. And the Doomsday Prophet murder trial continues. We'll bring you the biggest moments from today's testimony as this death penalty case moves forward.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
All right, testimony continues in the Treadmill abuse murder trial in New Jersey. Pediatrician Dr. Nancy Deacon is now on cross-examination, which at a couple of points gets pretty intense. So let's get back inside.
How are you, Doc?
I'm okay.
Good? You have some pedigree. Would you agree with that?
I think I have a good education and.
You had a BS in nursing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you get that from?
Wilkes University.
Okay. Then you have a DO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that from?
That's from the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey, School of Osteopathic Medicine. At least that's what it was called then when I graduated.
And then you got a pediatric internship, right, from JFK Hospital?
Yeah, that DO, we have an internship as part of to get your official DO. So I did that. Yep.
Now, what's the difference between a DO and an MD?
Doctors of osteopathy get additional training in the soft tissue. We're in education about the connection of the mind and the muscles and how everything's connected and influence each other, and how you can treat the whole body and person.
Then you have a pediatric residency, right?
Yes.
And where was that?
That was at Monmouth Medical Center, now the Unterberg Children's Hospital at Monmouth Medical Center.
And then you even taught, right?
And as part of that, I'm a teaching attending there. And I didn't also tell you I was a teaching attending at one time at Jersey Shore as well.
So how long did you teach for?
Well, I continue to teach residents.
What kind of residents were they?
They're pediatric residents.
And how long did you teach for?
I'm continuing my entire career as a pediatrician.
So how many years was that?
So I finished my residency in 95, and I'm still teaching, attending. I'm a clinical assistant professor at Rutgers, Robert Wood Robert Wood Johnson Medical Center.
So, go ahead, finish.
Through my work particularly with residents at Monmouth Medical Center.
Now, you're teaching them how to be pediatricians, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're teaching them how to do what you just told this jury that you do, right?
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, you had Ms. Schron give you the chart, right?
Yes.
So you could review the chart.
Yes.
Right? Because the chart is important, right?
Yes.
Okay? And I'm sure when you teach your students, you tell them how important it is to put information into that chart, right?
Yes.
Can you show me in your chart where you talk about what Corey told you, that you needed to encourage him to say that he was reluctant to say that to you, that you needed to prompt him, that you needed to show him he was safe? Can you show me anywhere in that chart when you wrote it, that you wrote those things, that, by the way, I would believe are important in an evaluation by a doctor who is asking about child abuse? Where is it in that chart, in that assessment?
So I did not document exactly what I said to Corey.
And as a matter of fact, 10 minutes before this jury walked into this room, did you testify at a hearing in this courtroom?
Yes.
Okay? And when you testified at the hearing in this courtroom, Ms. Schron asked you a number of questions about that report. Did she not?
She did.
And did you at any time during that questioning, before the jury was in this room, say anything about that you had to prompt Corey, you had to encourage him, he was reluctant to answer the questions? Did you say that one time?
I thought I said that he was reluctant. When I asked him, he hesitated. I believe that's what I said. He hesitated. I didn't say in the record that he hesitated. I said just what he said.
All right, so this is all about that issue we saw the judge talking about earlier, the idea that during the proffer for evidence, she didn't mention that she had to pick and prod at him to get that information out. It's kind of important information. Let's quickly bring in Deputy Public Defender for LA County, Philip Dubé. Philip, this was dealt with by the judge earlier, this idea that when in the record, as well as when she testified earlier when there was an offer of proof, she didn't mention she had to pick and prod. And ultimately, I think the defense is right for making an issue of this, because it can really sort of help this jury understand that if he's given the information freely, that's one thing. If he has to be prompted, that suggests something else, not helpful to the defense.
Yeah, obviously you don't want suggestibility during a medical examination of any patient, let alone a child, because it gives the impression to the jury that you're just making stuff up as you go along. Now, I got to tell you, I think really what's going on here is more of a discovery violation. If there were parts of her proffer that are not in the records, but she intended to offer them through testimony, then I think it's grounds for a continuance or perhaps a mistrial. Because if counsel did not have this added information, how are they supposed to prepare? You know, it's one thing when you voir dire a doctor or an expert outside the presence of the jury and you learn new things during that process, but it's another to have time to prepare between the time you do your voir dire and the time you bring the jury back in. It's just not enough time to prepare.
Yeah, and there really wasn't, because the proffer took place that day, just a couple of minutes before this particular testimony. All right, stand by, Philip. I want to take folks back into court there, back underway.
I'm going to have the reporter read back some portion of the doctor's testimony that occurred earlier today outside your presence on the position of defense counsel that the doctor's earlier testimony was inconsistent with her testimony before you. Whether or not it's inconsistent is for you to decide, and what weight to put it on is for you to decide. Had that testimony been some time ago, we would probably have a transcript of that. It was just today. We don't have that, so we're going to use this procedure where the reporter reads it back. Okay?
This is a question by Ms. Strome during this hearing. Question, Dr. Deacon, I'm approaching you with what's been marked for identification as S42. Could you do me a favor and take a look at S42 for a moment and tell me if you recognize it? Answer, I do. Question, what is S42? Answer, S42 is Corey Micciolo's chart. Question, okay, and after taking some time to review Corey's chart, could you tell me if it helps refresh your recollection with regard to exactly what Corey said to you? Answer, yes, I can. Question, okay, so do you want me to tell you what his mother said as well, or just what Corey said? Question, just what Corey said, please. Answer, Corey says that he got the chest, arm, and hip bruises and forehead abrasion when he was playing football outside on the turf. He said that his dad was teaching him how to catch a football. When I pressed him further, he said that he got more bruises when he fell from a treadmill.
Give the reporter a minute to get back to where it was on the record. You ready? You're wonderful for doing that so quickly. Mr. Gallucci.
You know what, I'm going to move on. You evaluated him, right?
I did.
And you found a number of bruises. And you made a bruise chart, right?
Yes.
And the young man told you that he was involved in 3 different activities. He told you that he received some bruises from playing football, right?
Yes.
He received some bruises from when his father was teaching him how to catch a football.
Well, that's the only thing that I said in my note, that he was teaching his father. I didn't have any other. I had 2 activities, actually, that he told me.
So, doctor, please keep your voice up, okay? Remember, the jurors in the back of the room have to hear you, okay?
I said that I described 2 activities that he told me about.
Well, it says here, and this is your report, Corey says he got his chest, arm, hip bruises, and forehead abrasion was he playing football outside on turf, number 1. He said that his dad was teaching him how to catch a football, number 2. When I pressed him further, he said he had more bruises when he fed from the treadmill. To me, that's 3.
Well, my impression, what he was talking about was playing football with his dad. It wasn't described that way, but that was my impression.
Okay.
I know of no other time he was playing football.
So, you know he fell off the treadmill.
Yes.
Okay. As you sit here now, you know he fell off the treadmill.
Yes.
And do you know the date that that was?
I don't know when he fell from the treadmill.
Okay. If I told you that he fell off the treadmill on March 20th and you're evaluating him on April 1st, would you agree with me that that's about 10 days later?
Yes.
Okay. If you said, did he tell you when he was playing football with his dad?
No.
Okay. Do you know when he was playing football
No.
with his dad? Okay. So let's go through the bruise chart. By the way, you're seeing him on April 1st. You didn't evaluate him on March 20th, March 21st, March 22nd,
That's correct.
right? You didn't see any activity he did on March 21st, right?
Correct.
You don't know if he played football in the park with his father, am I correct? You don't know if he was in the custody of his mother, Brianna, during any of that time, do you?
I don't know where he got those bruises.
Okay. So when you made your little chart here, and you identify, number 1, pink granulation tissue with tiny scab. Can you tell this jury if you can attribute that to a treadmill, a fall when he was with his mother, learning how to catch a football with his father, or a football tryout for flag football?
I can just estimate when he might have, by the healing process, when it might have happened. That's
So-
what I meant by varying stages.
So a pink granulation tissue with a tiny scab. I'm not a doctor, but I would assume a scab means that it's...
It's been probably over a week to 10 days, yeah, that
Okay.
it's healing. It's a,
So on your chart, you have a number of different things, right?
Right.
And you can't tell anybody here when they occurred or how they occurred.
No, I can just say that there's yellow-green, which is later, anyone's had a bruise, it goes through stages of healing, and that would be a later stage of healing. It's hard to know exactly how long. And blue-gray are more recent. Again, several days, you can't really, I just describe what I saw.
And you have actually 15 circles on your chart. Look in the middle of his chest above his left nipple. You don't have a number 15 documented on
Oh,
your
yeah, on down here it says hypopigmented skin. Again, that's an area. And I can't say, did he have hypopigmented? I can't, I'm just telling you that it's...
All right, that's going to wrap up our coverage of the Treadmill abuse murder trial for tonight. Thanks to Philip Dubé for joining us. I'm Michael Ayala. It's been a pleasure being with you. Thank you, as always, for being with me.